So MKUltra, now I'd say a lot of you probably already know that it exists, that it was a thing. This is, for a while, it was a conspiracy theory or whatever. They called it a conspiracy theory. Whereas we now have documents. They've been, many of them have been declassified. Truth has come out. And most people now understand that this is not a theory. This is absolutely real. But Kit Clarenberg over at Mint Press has revealed new files, declassified, revealing MKUltra's terrifying reach, ethnic bioweapons, mind control, and disturbing experiments. In a groundbreaking investigation, renowned anthropologist Orasanmi Burton has blown the lid off a dark chapter in CIA history. Classified agency files recently obtained through the Freedom of Information Act expose shocking ties between the infamous MKUltra program and nightmarish experiments on prisoners of color within the United States. The findings expose MKUltra's sinister mission to develop psychological warfare and behavioral manipulation tactics specifically aimed at people of color under the guise of counterinsurgency. Among the most haunting questions is whether the agency actively pursued a race-specified mind control weapon. Because, you know, most people have known about MKUltra, but the belief before now has always been that, well, maybe more black people got tested on, but without their knowledge, but that was just because the CIA and others were going to prisons. And since we have a racist criminal justice system, there are more black people in prisons. So you end up testing more black people. That was the belief until now, but that seems to not be accurate. Of the many medical research facilities abused by the CIA for the purposes of MKUltra, Allen Memorial Institute, a psychiatric hospital in Montreal, looms perhaps the largest. From 1957 to 1964, the CIA secretly operated the program's Sub-Project 68 under the leadership of notorious psychiatrist Ewan Cameron, the institution's founder. Cameron sought to de-pattern minds via a technique known as psychic driving. It entailed drugging unconsenting, unwitting patients with incapacitating cocktails of psychedelic substances, then subjecting them to electric shocks while they listened to hours of recorded looped audio. Does that sound a lot like fucking Nazi experiments? I mean, it's horrifying. These people often don't even know they're being drugged. Sometimes they would drug them without them even knowing they were being drugged. But in almost all the cases, they're not consenting to be drugged and electric shocked. Cameron hoped to render his subjects' minds a blank slate onto which new behaviors, thoughts, memories, and personalities could be surreptitiously imposed from the outside. It also served the purpose of interrogation. And let's remember, in case any of you are confused enough to think that, well, they were prisoners, so clearly they broke the law. You know, they were probably doing this on serial murderers to try and reset their minds so they wouldn't serial murder anymore. No. Think about how many people were tested on in these prisons. I guarantee most of them, the vast majority, were not murderers. The vast majority were probably black people who ended up in jail for some stupid reason. You know, many times they would arrest people for debtors issues, or they'd arrest people for some small amount of drugs, or they'd arrest a black guy for being the only black guy in town or whatever. And now they're in prison. And now the government says, well, they're prisoners, they're criminals. We should be able to test on them however we see fit. Black Americans expressing revolutionary views were increasingly labeled as suffering from severe mental health conditions. Psychiatrist Jonathan Metzl's groundbreaking work, The Protest Psychosis, uncovered how medical research articles began portraying Negro men as having a uniquely dangerous form of schizophrenia compared to their white counterparts. Isn't it amazing how racism becomes science? How you go, well, I've done all the research and I've found that the black folks are schizophrenic while the white folks are just, they just didn't feel like paying for the thing. It's like you could have a black person and a white person arrested for the same thing. One of them is diagnosed as schizophrenic simply for being black, and the other person is just, oh, they were having a tough time. The implications from the implications from the DSM that shifted how they viewed black people. The implications were profound. Civil rights activists daring to resist were at risk of being diagnosed and institutionalized. Prisoners refusing to bend to oppressive jail regimes could be conveniently labeled as criminally insane. Think about that. All you do is you get arrested for basically being an activist, for protesting, right? People get arrested for that all the time. Protesting a war machine that at this time was involved in Vietnam, killing all millions of Vietnamese, involved in the Korean War, killing millions of Koreans. And you protest that. You say, this is wrong. I'm standing up against it. Then they arrest you for the protest. Then you're in prison and you talk back. I don't want to stand in, I'm not standing straight enough for you. Like all that bullshit, you start becoming a problem prisoner. And now you could be labeled as criminally insane by psychiatrists. It's fucked up how medicine and science is used as a fucking mask over just racism and control. Just outright control is masked as some sort of science. In 1990, Dr. Douglas Lipton, director of the Narcotic and Drug Research Institute, exposed Dana Moore's chilling mission, that's another doctor, chilling mission to obliterate inmates' identities and mold them into obedient pawns. In testimony to Congress, he laid bare the devastating efficacy of these efforts, which left an indelible mark on the lives of those they ensnared. Assembling a group of 50 of the most troubled souls, described by Dr. Lipton as the worst group you had ever seen, the Allen team subjected them to a year of MKUltra torture. The torment they endured stripped them down to their very cores, leaving them vulnerable to resocialization attempts bordering on mind-altering manipulation. What it does is take you back to a kind of kindergarten level and then brings you back up. Basically, they were torturing people to the level that their minds were mush. It's just straight up abuse to the level, like mental abuse to the level that they can't function as humans in society anymore. Really turning them back to children by just fucking destroying them. And this was our government. And they were doing it without the American people's consent. But even if the American people had voted for this, you know what? I'd still think it was wrong. So some people put a lot of price on, like, they do it without Americans' consent. Yes, that's wrong. Also, if they had consent, I still wouldn't have. We voted that you should be able to shock black people into fucking oblivion and erase their minds. We voted for that. It was 61% to 49%. So I think it's fine. No, I don't care whether we voted for it or not. But obviously, we did not.